Okay, guys, welcome back. It's been a while since I've made this video. I've been wanting to make this follow-up to my first Nullius video for a while now, and in fact, I've completed this Nullius run since I think like beginning of September, and then I was in a different city and using my laptop instead of using my actual setup, so yeah, it's been a while, and in fact, I don't even remember exactly where it left off since the last video and how these like builds came to be. So I'm gonna show off a couple of like the main end game things from Nullius or like the main end game features. But if I forget something, like you're just gonna have to forgive me for that. And no, the version that I'm of Nullius that I am using is a little bit outdated now. Since I've completed the game for a while, the creator has actually made a couple of modifications to it, but nothing's crazy different. I think he says the mod is most likely done now. I think the one thing he added is this tech that I'm researching now. Actually, I was the one who suggested it to him. It's a tech that allows you to get oxygen straight from the air instead of having to get it from the water. And you can get this actually from your oxygen goals. So let's see. I guess I'll just show you a couple of main things. So over here is my big um, heavy water creation facility. So you get heavy water from so here's like a basically a sink of where all the wastewaters go. Before you'll have to basically dump all of it, but now they can all come uh, get dragged over here by train. And then there's this recipe here, and it's heavy water to you get one heavy water per 750 wastewater, so it takes a lot. And and then from the heavy water you can um, electrolyze it into deuterium, tritium, and oxygen. And the tritium is the main thing you get from it. You get a lot more deuterium than you get tritium. So you have your deuterium tank here, and you can vent most of it, no problem. I mean, you might end up having to vent some tritium anyways, but um, usually you need way more tritium than you need deuterium. And then there's a couple of so here's the first cell that you need to get, that you need to make for the fusion power, the fusion cell, and then the second cell is called the breeder cell. Breeder cell gives you very little energy per cell, but it allows you to make more tritium basically. So it takes in some original fusion cell plus some deuterium, but then once this is used up in the washing process, like right here, um, so a spent breeder cell plus some water, and then you get out much more tritium from it, and you also get a bit of a waste helium out of it. And let's see here. So basically, all these cells use the same kind of reactor. They just have different amounts of energy per cell, and this mod doesn't really use things like degrees or anything like that. So it's just one reactor consistently, and then let's see what else I'm gonna show you. So basically that's my one big setup. Um, the next big setup I'm gonna show you is like my giant hydrocarbon farm setup. So it uses a lot of these fluid must flow ducts with tons of basically rows of electrolyzer just making the hydrogen and oxygen very loud, and then there's rows of distilleries making the basically the carbon dioxide to be used, and then Of course, the nitrogen can be stored for power. I think there is some later recipes that use a bit of nitrogen. And then rows to make the carbon monoxide. Of course, there's later recipes that make this setup kind of not so useful anymore, that you don't need to actually put energy into creating them. But yeah, here it is. And then rows of alkene synthesis. I think there's a different alkene synthesis recipe too. That no, this is the original alkene synthesis, but these are all pressurized recipes. And there is, oh yeah, this one makes more methane than uh and doesn't make any benzene, but you do need benzene a little bit in a lot of the other recipes. So I have them, and there's recipes to propylize them to balance the different alkenes that you get. Or even if you have too much benzene, then you can do this called benzene reforming, and that gets you back into the hydrogen and carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. And I think over here I have a huge chlorine farm. I know earlier on you need to dispose of excess chlorine, but later on you actually do need hydrochloric acid and even hydrogen chloride for a lot of things. You um, and then if anything, you kind of need this hydrochloric acid to dispose rock instead of so much having to dispose of the. I mean, of course, you could use limestone and the what's this recipe called? Not that one, but whatever makes this here. Yeah, the this calcium chloride. You need to make some of this calcium chloride, and that is the effective recipe in getting rid of the chlorine. But again, you don't need you really don't need to get rid of a lot of the chlorine, but instead you do need to dispose like a huge amount of rock and gravel. So here's all my like disposal to make mineral dust into sludge plus carbon monoxide. And then of course at the very edge of the spills, there's that's one of the. And I think later on there are more efficient recipes for um like for steel, for aluminum, not so much for silica. There is a new recipe to make, I think, the monocrystalline silicon. Let's go back up here and see. Yeah, there's a more efficient recipe to make titanium. Kind of skips the titanium tetrachloride step, but you do need some of the titanium tetrachloride, so you can't entirely get rid of your previous facilities. But yeah, this is the steel making recipe that uses calcium. The calcium recipe, there's a aluminum processing recipe, basically different kind of aluminum processing recipes. There's a few different ones. One that um, makes some of the steps easier. Kind of can't really go through it all now that I'm like so far into the mod without, and it's been so long since I've touched it, unfortunately. Silicon production. Yeah, it's this one that this polycrystalline silicon recipe that uses argon in the process instead of the original um, one that uses nitrogen. So it's a lot. I mean, the original one had some use for the excess nitrogen that you had, but this new recipe is a lot more efficient in terms of the ore inputs. I don't think you get any better monocrystalline silicon recipes though. So yeah. Um, okay, so then once you, I don't know if the last time I'll show you how to make the space science from launching rockets. Like you do need to start launching rockets. And I believe so. Actually, I'll show this thing first. there is a thing that once after you start launching rockets, there's four or five things that you gotta do. Basically, one thing is to terraform the planet, meaning replace any of these weird any of these more alien looking landscapes. So the red or volcanic. Here's some volcanic here, and then the purple. There's some purple here, and I believe maybe even ice. I can't remember what the ice counts, but basically there's a percentage of these more alien landscapes that you gotta replace with the more um, regular looking landscapes like this kind of either this beige color or just brown color, one of these, and then you get some terraforming points and up to 100%. It's actually pretty easy to reach this goal. You just gotta fire things, and then also if you use this excavation remote to destroy some of these purple, it also counts. So that's one of the things you gotta do. And then the other thing is you gotta vent oxygen. Now you've been venting oxygen since the beginning of the game, pretty or very early on in the game. Like even in my starter base, there's some like here you electrolyze the water into hydrogen and oxygen, and hydrogen is something that's useful in synthesizing other things, whereas oxygen ends up just building up and building up in a tank here, and then oh no, not that one. I think yeah, here, like the oxygen tank just ends up building up and you have to end up venting it. But in nowhere near large enough quantities for like the end game goal. That much I have to tell you. Uh, Here's some lithium processing. I don't know if that came to be it. Basically, just you make lithium chloride uh, from this brine, and you get salt. Very small amount of lithium chloride. You end up having to dispose most of the salt, and then this here like some salt to make more sodium. But then here the lithium chloride you make into lithium. I think you get lithium chloride from one of your as a byproduct of one of the bio recipes later on. So you can bring some of them back here too. Like I think here, yes, I have it like requesting from elsewhere in the base. So let's go to my if I come across it, yeah, here. So basically, you end up getting a recipe called carbon sequestration, and is it this? So, no, not that one. Here, maybe. Okay, yeah. So it's carbon dioxide. So the technology is called carbon sequestration, and the recipe is carbon dioxide electrolysis, where you straight up get oxygen out of carbon monoxide, and then of course you can just vent this oxygen, but then you also get a bunch of extra carbon monoxide. Now, carbon monoxide is of course used in this alkene synthesis, and it's very useful because of you see how like it takes like an extra step. It takes you making hydrogen from massive amounts of electrolysis and also the carbon monoxide, and you have to run it through all these labs. So, I mean, it's a nice extra. It's a nice extra recipe. I do have like excesses of it going down into my alkene farms, but there's also like here, there's also a way of just getting rid of it. So you have any extra carbon monoxide, it just gets created into graphite. I don't know why this is totally stopped right now. I don't know what's actually blocking it, but um, maybe too much nitrogen. Yeah, I think all the nitrogen's getting stored up here. Um, I think I have it going into like a power storage. You do need a decent amount of nitrogen later on to get rid of cellulose. I'll touch that later, but that comes much later on. And unfortunately, I don't think there's really any other big use of nitrogen. Here's all my bio setup. I'll go through it in just a second. So here's the lab. Here's the rocket launchers. I think the outputs are totally blocked now. Doesn't matter. Um, so that's the second. So basically, you make the satellite. Here, yes, satellite, and then when you launch a satellite, you get the black science, the space science. And after you get the space science, it unlocks a couple things. The first thing is it unlocks your ability to get more ore, get more ore patches. I shall show. Believe it's in my mall somewhere here. Yes. So it allows you to make a Astra Miner. That's the Astra Miner 2. This is the Astra Miner 1. And here. Let's see. So yeah, you see when you launch it, you first get more iron, and then later on, I think you could make some of the iron back into Astra Miners. Um, so you can there's a chance for you to get some of these things, and one of the two things that you get that's not on this planet initially is copper and uranium, and there is like there's a end game goal of that you must launch a certain number of copper patches and a certain number of uranium patches. Now I don't have any. Oh, I have one uranium drone, so you can either launch these off of one of those like basically those artillery things, or you can launch them off of your Spidertron actually has a artillery. So see like here, I just launch it right here, press C, and then it creates the ore patch. So that's for uranium, and then here's my copper patch. You don't need any more than this to complete the game, really. Um, and then you can also have like I made like a little island, for example. Like there's an iron drone, so you can just have iron fire, and then let's see. So it's coming. See how the iron gets made there? So basically, once you unlock this tech, you don't need to go out and find any more patches at all. I think the geothermal does run out eventually. That is limited, but you don't really need any more than like your basic few of them. So I mean, I think I have a lot of them tapped into, but yeah. Mm, so I guess let's have a look at the uranium then. It Let's see here. Okay, so you first crush it, you get a bit of extra mineral dust, and then you add sulfuric acid to make yellow cake, sludge as the byproduct, and then yellow cake, add a bit of soda ash, and it becomes that's the dull uranium, so the U238, and then you get a gravel, and then you get a sulfur dioxide. I don't know if I have it fed back into somewhere or I may have it. I think I've tried to have it like pumped into the main supply. And then you enrich the uranium by bringing in tritium. And I just have tritium brought in via can of bottles, barrels, and then done this way. I guess I should disable the night, eh? Give me just 1 second. That's fine. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be saving this game, so it's okay. Um, so then both the dull and the enriched uranium can be used to make these uh, fission cells, and they're pretty powerful. It just takes some more steel sheets, and then the washing process. You get out a iron oxide, and you get back some of the yellow cake, and then you get more wastewater. Oh, I guess it takes in both the sulfuric acid and caustic solution. And since we're here, let's take a look at copper. So you mine copper, you crush it, you get some stone, um, and then you add some solvent and sulfuric acid, and you get out a copper solution, plus sludge as the byproduct. And then with the copper solution, you have to electrolyze it into copper ingots. And then with copper ingots, you either make it into a wire or into a sheet. And then these sheets are used in various recipes. Like I honestly can't show you them all. They're in the mall and stuff. Like there is a bit more efficient recipe to make this insulated wire using copper wire. Let's see. Guess I can show that off at least. Here, yeah. So rubber and one copper wire makes six insulated wire versus the old recipe. Two rubber and three aluminum wire makes four insulated wire. So it's a lot more efficient of a recipe. I just have things flying in by bots. Um, Okay, so I guess I'll show the last one of the power fuel supplies. I think I have it just being made in the mall. Ah, yes, this. So this thing is called an antimatter trap, and it's not an antimatter. Let's see. In fact, I think the fuel value of this is very low. Um, 1 gigajoule. Like how much is the fission cell? Fission cell is a 4 gas, so it's not terribly low. It's higher than like a breeder cell. So it's very expensive. Um, and then once you spend it, um, once you actually use it though in a I think I have a setup here. Yeah, that uses it. I'm pretty sure I have it currently turned off. Yeah. So when you use it, that's when you get this. When you actually get the antimatter. Once you burn it. And antimatter is used in quite a few very late game stuff. Some of the stuff I haven't even researched, like this end game battery. Uh, or yeah, it's a battery, and then does that give you the end game accumulator? Yeah, that gives you the end game accumulator, battery three. And so let's see. So that's the couple things that you have to do, and then of course, the good stuff. The main meat and what do they call them? The meat and body of this mod is the biology stuff. So here it is. Here's the beginning of it. So kind of, I guess I don't know how I should even go about this. Let's go through it in the tech. So after astronomy, here's the first one, the bio. It's biochemistry one, and that allows that make you get a different lab to use for biological sciences. So you make the building blocks like sugar from glycerol and oxygen, amino acids from ammonia, glycerol, and oxygen, fatty acids from propene, methanol, and oxygen, and nucleotides from the previous uh, let's see, nucleotides from nitric acid, methanol, and amino acids. and then you can make a biochemistry sample. So there's like you eventually, instead of running tech in, so there's two labs. One lab will run your standard kind of tech, like these ones, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven techs, and then the other lab will run your bio lab techs. So one, two, three, four, five, six. Ah, this one doesn't even use the biochemistry sample. Here, like this one uses biochemistry sample. Um, I'm surprised. Yeah, that one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Yeah, I guess yeah, that one doesn't use the biochemistry. That tech for the there is like a research speed tech that basically goes one level standard science, one level one level bioscience. I think. Let's see here. Yeah, like this. Basically, this is a not research speed, research productivity. So there's this one, and then there's a let's see here. So okay, so the speed one uses the standard tech, and the productivity one uses the biology tech. So now that we've gone off that tangent, so biochemistry, so this is the biochemistry one, and let's see it. So here is the one, two, three, and four rows. These are all very, very slow recipes, like 20 seconds on this one, 8 seconds. That's not a bad, not bad. 5 seconds, not bad. I guess it's only the sugar that's really slow. This one's really slow. And then, so let's go on to the next one. So the next one will be biology one, which you can make bacteria. So you make first you make this thing called a protocell, which I guess means like the building block of like everything, and then and then you make a genome, bacteria genome. Very expensive. All the genomes are very expensive. It takes a lot of sciences, and um, and then you have one. Basically, this is creating the bacteria out of the genome and from the other building materials, and it's very, very slow. You don't want to be using this recipe for any more than like the first few of them that to get your processes started, and then you so it's one of them would be called the bacteria one, and you'll see these recipes. Every one of the biosciences has one of these recipes, and then bacteria two, which basically is the bacteria multiplying on its own. So you throw in bacteria plus a few of these other things like sugar and cellulose to make it grow, and then you get out bacteria, and as a bonus you get some methane gas that you can spend elsewhere in the lab. And also you make cellulose from sugar and solvent. This is also comparatively a very slow recipe. Cellulose actually becomes more of a byproduct later on, but one of the things you'll notice from all the biosciences is that um, basically even the things like sugar and um, the previous like amino acids, nucleotides and stuff, it comes from like you have to make you can make it, but then you can also break it. But then once you start growing more organisms and harvesting the organisms, you actually get back way more than you put in, and you can start actually harvesting those for your factories from there. So let's see. So that's biology two. I can show you a bit, and then I can show you the bacteria build. So here it is. Here's the protocell build, and then here's all my different genomes. I just have them brought in because they all take like the nucleotides. I mean, some of them take a protocell, or I mean, some of them take a bacteria. If it's a, guess if it's a, I don't know the actual pattern really. Huh. If it's a plant, it takes a bacteria. I no, but arthropod also takes. Anyway, some of them take a bacteria, some of them don't, but they all take nucleotides, and they all output wastewater. They're all very slow, but they're all very expensive, so you don't need a lot of the machines to make them. So here is the bacteria 1 setup, and I have like a limiter small pump, and it's gathering here into these barrels. And then here's the bacteria 2 setup, and this one you want running all the time, this one you don't. So I have like it only filling up to 500. And then I've since then also made a much bigger setup down here, and that you allows me to make way more of these bacteria. Um, I think so. So I have it imported, but this pump only works for up to 1,000, and then now it's filled up. And then let's move on to the next one. Let's see. La 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 la. So biochemistry 2. Um, you synthesize oil from fatty acids and glycerol, and then you can get rid of cellulose by combusting it with oxygen and carbon dioxide. Oh, and then also this graphite. So I showed you the previous carbon sequestration that you do with the graphite, and what you're meant to do with this massive amounts of graphite is just actually getting rid of it. There's a recipe to dispose of graphite. Um, Not here, but oh, let's see where it is. Somewhere here. Oh yeah, I guess this is carbon sink recipe. Graphite box, plastic box, and then just some landfill, and then you get the and then you get a bunch of gray landfill, and there's a way of getting rid of the gray landfill. I wish I can just show you quickly how to get rid of it. Hmm. I mean, it can't be below, it can't be after the excavation drones because you need excavation drones to get rid of it. Oh, here. Yeah, rock dumping. So you need 5 excavation drones and some rocket fuel, and then it just goes poof. Okay, let's now move back. Let's see, where were we? Not biochemistry 4. That's way too far forward. Here, that's biochemistry 2. Let's go up one. Oh, biology 2. So that's where you make algae. And so you make an algae genome, and then you make an algae progenitor, which is, I guess it's like something that creates, it's not the algae itself, it's something that comes before the actual algae. I think other than bacteria, there's no bacteria progenitor, but the rest of them have a progenitor. And progenitor is, of course, very expensive because it takes the genome. Genomes are generally very expensive. And then there's an algae 1 that takes the progenitor. Of course, you don't want to use this recipe any more than you have to. And then the algae gets So you get some algae progenitor, and then you have to crush the algae into spores, and you get out some cellulose. You actually get a lot of cellulose from this. Um, and then sometimes if you have too many algae spores and it jams things up, you can always there's always recipes to dispose of it. And then you can make more algae from, let's see, from the algae spores you can add a bit more, and then you put in air, and then you can make more algae, and then this step actually produces a lot of oxygen as a byproduct. Um, and then from each of the steps, you can see that you can make a drone, and from the progenitor and some algae spores and stuff. I mean, the recipe, I don't think there's really any pattern to them, but so this drone is what shoots the algae into the map, and then here's the science pack from this level of science. Uh, So do I talk about nitrogen chemistry? No, let's just show you this first. So here's the progenitor recipe. And then here is the, oh no, that's grass. Okay, so yeah, I kind of made it to get a little bit together because I at first thought that you can, because they both output oxygen and they both take in air, that I can kind of put it together, but it ends up you don't really need to. Um, and then here is the one that uses progenitor and then crushes the algae. I think I have too much cellulose that it's jamming up now, but whatever. I'm not really interested in fixing that right now. Something's jammed up with all these processes. Not a huge concern. Um, so yeah, so then here is what actually makes the algae, and then the oxygen. I guess I'm just venting it here. You need to vent a lot of the oxygen for the goal, anyways. And then here's a no, that's for grass. Here's the drone for the algae. And then so here close by, this is what they look like on the map. Basically, what you do is you take the remote, uh, algae agriculture remote, and then you just shoot it here, and then eventually the cannon fires it, and it comes here. It's not really gonna latch now. You'll see it come over in a second here. Yep. So there it is. It's not gonna latch now. You shoot it at water. I think it's better the uh, at the shallow waters. Um, and then it'll grow like this. And then over time, these things on the map actually do produce its own oxygen and vent the oxygen goes. So that's an interesting thing. And then I guess let's look at nitrogen chemistry, which makes fertilizer. You need a lot of fertilizer. Takes in ammonia, takes in algae, cellulose, a bunch of sludge. Actually, this is one of the things for sludge, and nitric acid. And you make the fertilizer. And you need fertilizer in the next step, which from grass onwards, I think you need fertilizer. So that's nitrogen chemistry, and that's botany. So here's botany. So that's the grass progenitor, grass genome, grass progenitor, grass one, which takes brown landfill, which is kind of annoying, um, and also produces quite a bit of oxygen. And then you grow more from fertilizer, more landfill. Oh yeah, and then you crush it to make grass seeds, and so you get a lot of cellulose. And it takes in fresh water and air, and then you make more grass. Uh, and then you make a drone. Here's the recipe from it. And then there's another specimen or technology thing from it. So let's take a look. I mean, here's the grass progenitor, and then I believe here's the grass one. You make a little bit of it, and then here's more of the grass two, yeah. And then all the cellulose, a lot of extra cellulose. And so here's my like initial setup, and then I've done a bigger setup up here. So produces a lot more algae. Everything. One of the things you'll notice, you have to come up with these loops for the biosystem so that it goes round and around, and that's a lot. Um, that's quite a bit more effective than anything in like a row or yeah. So um, that's one of the things. It's hard to explain it until you've like played it. But what you notice is a lot of the inputs become like a lot of the outputs become inputs, and or the outputs are the inputs. So it makes sense to have things loop around like this. And here's grass and have it loop around like that. Um, produces a lot of oxygen. You could loop it back into where you need to input oxygen. With the amount of fluids, I'll touch on this later on when I give like my overall impressions of the mod. But you're gonna have to vent some of this. There's no way that the throughput can have it loop back enough. So here's where some of the cellulose is being disposed of. This is one of the cellulose burning recipes. Well, I mean, this is the initial cellulose burning recipe. Very takes a lot of oxygen actually. Um, it was kind of stuck. Cellulose was kind of just stuck here, but I don't know if it's actually flowing or not. I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm not really playing it anymore. But yeah, see, like this is consistently going and producing a lot of graphite as a result. Um, and you do need some of this graphite, but not honestly not nearly enough. Not nearly like the amount that it's producing here. You do need to just have this feed into the carbon sequestration. And then here, I mean, here's like the disposal. So here it's making like tons of this gray landfill box, and then here it's just disposing of it. And I have like basically trains and trains worth of graphite brought in here just to be disposed of. Okay, and then I think next up is I believe worms. Yeah, so you make grass and then oh, and then the grass when you shoot it into the world. Oh, you can shoot one now. Horticulture. I don't think yeah, there's no grass here. Shoot one now and see what that does. I don't know if this actually has grass here or not. It won't latch on these like explosion seams, and it latches on basically I think like more of a soil-ish ground. Yeah, so okay, oh it does latch a little bit, but not fully. See like yeah how it became grass there. So it grows. There's all these like climate-based things from the mod um uh, there's like climate zones based off of the alien biomes mod. So say like these icy areas are never really gonna grow anything, whereas some more temperate or areas grow like greener grass. There's these like rocks that never grow the grass. Um, like these rocks are never doesn't grow the grass, but some of the other ones grow better grass than other terrains. And yeah, there's a goal for every one of the organisms that you have to launch into the world for basically for the algae, grass, trees, worms, and then fish, and then finally the biters or the biter nests. So let's look at next would be the worms, zoology one. So there's a genome, there's a progenitor, there is a um, worms one. So this the progenitor recipe, and these worms take a lot of oxygen input, and it outputs carbon dioxide. And same with growing more worms from the worm eggs. Oh yeah, so when you grow worm, you get some worm and you get some worm eggs. At first, you can really only dispose of them by crushing them, and you just crush them into sludge, and nothing else much comes out of it. But a thing with these like with these living things, is you can actually harvest them for stuff later on. And and then here's the drone, and then here is the specimen or the science. So zoology 1 leads to, let's see, zoology 2, nope. What? So at this point, you can start making um, better weapons, I think. Here, so I'll show this one more biochemistry. So where you can start harvesting the worm. So you can actually get back a bit of rutile and amino acids and ammonia from harvesting the worm, and then harvesting the eggs is actually where it's a lot more juicier because you get back actually nucleotides. And let's see, fermentation. So you can start get, and then in this step you can start getting back. Let's see, biochemist. Yeah, no. In this step you can start getting back stuff from sugar. Um, and also you could start breaking down extra amino acid you have for ammonia and more methane. Here, protocell 2. Okay, I didn't. I feel like this is new. I don't have this running. So you can make more protocell from bacteria. I don't know, but okay. So I haven't done this one. I do apologize. Yeah, I actually didn't know this one was there at all. So let's see. So yeah, this ammonia and then this is where and at this point, the ammonia station, for example, can become an instead of it being an input station, it becomes an output station. So at first, I have this being an import station, bringing in ammonia, but then now because of all the processes to dispose of the nit- dispose of the amino acid and nucleotides, that you can start having an output. So let's see, and I think I have it only running if it's so here's disposing nucleotides for nucleo. I think nucleotides should break down much later. I don't know now, but so yeah, here's the nucleotide breakdown. Um, and here is here's the glycolysis from sugar. Nope, that's not it. That's glycolysis from the sugar. That's a much later one too, of like using up all your extra sugar. Oh, and then, oh yeah, so with all the extra cellulose, you can actually make it into sugar. This is much faster. Takes in some, other stuff, hydrochloric acid and caustic solution, but this is much efficient sugar recipe um, than say like the initial sugar recipe. But then of course you can make cellulose from the sugar too. Again, autosave. Anytime you run it through one of these steps, it doesn't necessarily hurt to use like a less efficient recipe than the rest, because every time you're running through these like productivity modules, you actually get a little bit of the you actually get a little bit of free stuff. So yeah, I guess another important thing with these biology things is that you just gotta have loops of things going on. I don't know how to explain it for you. Yeah, so this is fermentation, and you get that methanol and carbon dioxide from your sugars. So and then that's where methanol, because I initially have it brought in as well, and I think that becomes an export station. And that's even glycerol becomes becomes an export station afterwards. Even though you have to bring it in to make fatty acids at first. I don't know. Where's my methanol? Yes, yeah, methanol. So that becomes an output state. I mean, export station, and you always have to mark the priority 10, so that it gets used up for your other factory processes. Oh, I've been rambling. Bear with me. There's a few more, and then I'm done this video. So zoology 1. I haven't shown you the setup yet. Here's my first warm setup. I think my first setup here, but then I made a much bigger one. So yeah, so I have some crushers just to grind up any extras that may be jamming up. So here's the progenitor, and then here's the worms 1, and then here's worms 2, and then here's the harvesting. So that's the worms harvest and the worm egg harvest. And I think I made a much bigger setup of these down here, yes. So of course this won't have the worms 1 setup because I just bring in some eggs to kickstart it. And then I have it harvesting. I think the ammonia is usually what doesn't get used up. Um, let's see. Oh no, there's a lot of, oh, it's one of the amino acids. I haven't been able to find my amino acid breakdown factory. Oh, here. Yeah, so I have these signal transmissions. Basically, it transmits signals from much further, and it doesn't pump the amino acids unless the storage is higher than like a baseline amount. So so this is taking in amino acids and breaking it down to ammonia and methane. So the ammonia you can export it into elsewhere in the factory. Very useful, but also tends to build up a little bit right now. Methane, I don't know if it actually gets all used up, or I have it here where any extra methane that doesn't get used up just gets stored, compressed for power. So I don't know, whatever. Compressed as power storage, which is fine. I mean, that doesn't hurt. Um, and then here. So moving on. Worms. So I guess yeah, let's look at fish. Fish is probably the next thing. So takes in a worm progenitor. That's the genome. Takes in a worm genome and some text. Fish progenitor. Calcium. This is where it starts taking in oil, I believe, um, and then fish 1 takes in algae and worm, and then even to make fish 2 you need a lot of algae, you need some worm, and you need fish eggs to grow into fish. And then at first you can only grind up the fish and the eggs, and then there's a aquaculture drone and a fish tech. Let's see. So yes, I think this is the fish setup. Um, so progenitor, fish 1. Nope, this is fish harvest. Oh, this is just fish 1. It's not being used anymore. I just turn it inserter sometimes. And then fish 2's here. Um, the fluids honestly suck. It's very hard to keep because it takes in a tremendous amount of oxygen, like 1K oxygen. Even it's very tough to actually keep it fed in a way where all these machines get their oxygens all the time. And then of course there's harvesting of the fish, and let's see, harvesting of the fish. No, no, here. Harvesting of the fish eggs, which gets you the juicy nucleotides and oil. And with fish, I think chemistry 4 I've shown already. Okay, I'll show botany. So trees are friend well, in this mod anyways. I think trees also passively make oxygen on the map. So you get tree progenitor, then a tree one. Using progenitor takes in a lot of air and fresh water, and tree two takes in tree seed and worms, and fresh water and air, and then you grind up the tree for wood and cellulose and tree seeds. And wood can be further ground up into cellulose. Tree seeds can, if you have too much tree seeds, you can actually grind them up for cellulose and oil. And also, here's the tree drone. Some box versions of the recipes, and then the tree tech. So let's take a look at a tree setup. Um, and then I guess I'll just show the tech. So with wood, it's pretty good. Wood, you get a couple of alternative recipes to things that you had before. Trees, wood, so you get different ways of making chests, power poles, rails, walls, even medium miners, mm, assemblers. So these are not actually any different. They're just different recipes because again, remember we didn't have wood on this planet before. And I'll just go through this. Even biochemistry 7. No, that's not it. Nah, that's too far ahead. Biochemistry 5. Yep. Okay, and then with the next recipe, you're able to a better way of harvesting the tree instead of just grinding it up. You actually get rubber as a. I think you also get sugar. You get rubber and sugar out of it instead of just wood and cellulose. And then you can harvest fish. I've shown it before. So fish harvest, you get that's where you get some of the lithium chloride for free, and fish egg, and here, and then also you can make oil back into fatty acids and glycerol. Um, Biodiesel, I never use this. Honestly, you don't really need to because it's just an extra fuel for combustion. But yeah, why bother? Glycerol reforming is good. And if you have any extra glycerol, you can reform it into your hydrogen and carbon monoxide to make more alkenes. Um, and here, biodiesel canister is like a different fuel, and you don't really need to use this, honestly. And I guess, yeah, there's a recipe if you need to dispose more of lithium chloride, you don't really. Um, wood, oh yeah, you can directly burn wood. I don't think I'm using this recipe though, to be honest. Just because of the extra input is kind of annoying. Oh, I guess, yeah, in a way this is like going back to the original Factorio of having like a burner engine, but for like a burner fuel, but I don't think I use this at all. So, okay, let's look at the tree setup. Where is it? Nope, that's just spiders now. Ah, here, okay. So, yes, this is progenitor tree 1, and then tree 2, again, goes in loops. Lots and lots of wood. Uh, the wood needs to constantly get broken down into the cellulose, it gets jammed up all the time. Um, and then here's the bigger wood setup. I think, yeah, I have two different loops of it. And here's latex. I guess even if the latex gets jammed, that's where I have it. That's where it'll just activate like the regular wood grinding, and then of course there's tree seed grinding if there's too much, but there usually isn't, which is good. Um, think that so yeah, that's another source of rubber if you want to export it that way. It does take in the sodium sulfate as an input. Um, and I think finally there's one more thing. trees, and then shown this already. Um, I guess you're able to, let's see here. Chemistry 6. Ah, yes, yeah, so you're able to make ACH with the next tech in terms of using some of the glycerol, and this is a lot more efficient than your first ACH recipe. So yeah, that's something. And then yes, there's another lubricant recipe using the oil, biolubricant. So there's oil. So I think the way I don't know if I messed up the oil setup somehow, but it's constantly making oil. Yeah, it's constantly making it, but it's also constantly cracking it, which is fine because look at how many of these like productivity modules there are. I'm getting free stuff out of this, so it's not terrible. So the last thing would be biters. Yes. Whew, and I guess that's where all the good stuff comes from, eh? Uh, let's see, biters. So zoology 3. So fish genome, and then progenitor, arthropod progenitor, funnily enough, takes in plastic, and then to kickstart it, it takes in gun, and bullets, and cellulose and fish, and then you can make it. And even the oh yeah, even to continue to grow it, you have to throw in you have to throw in magazines and gun, which is so anyways, yeah, arthropod egg, and then as a byproduct, you get out a little bit of iron oxide, and then at first, yes, you can only grind it up, and then you get and then that's the biter's drone, and then the biter's tech. Biochemistry 6, right? Yeah, biochemistry 6. So then after you get biters, you can start making lasers. There's no gun turret. That's the only turret that's available this game. And then biochemistry 6, you can if you get too much plastic, because I think if you harvest arthropod, yeah, if you harvest this biter, you can get plastic as the main product, and you get heavy water also, which is kind of nice, and you get a graphene. So and then if you have too much graphene from this, then I think you can start I guess not this tech. So yeah, so if you get too much plastic, you can make the plastic into graphite and get rid of it that way. And if you this one I don't know, I never really used this recipe. I think it's good, but yeah, I'm not sure. It's called biomass cultivation. You can consider it. Oh, and this is where you can start breaking down nucleotides, and uh and here's a different, it's a much better way of getting rid of the cellulose. You use nitrogen instead of oxygen, and you could break down the glyc. Oh yeah, and then a different way of breaking down the sugar that you may have too much of now. And so instead you get glycerol and methane out of it. And here, yeah, if you have too many graphene, graphene used to be a very hard, slow recipe, but now since you're harvesting it from the arthropods, if you get too much of it, you can make it into carbon fiber. Carbon fiber was also like a bitch to make too. So, yeah, that's something extra that you get. And let's see, biochemistry 5. Yeah, so here, I can't remember where the fatty acid breakdown or fatty acid um, tech comes in. There's a fatty acid, even biochemistry 6. Okay, yeah, fatty acid So here's another way of using up your extra fatty acids in to buff up your alkene farms, and I have it in here, these two setups, one down here, It's bringing in any of the fatty acids by barrels. I think one of these is, yeah, ethylene is jammed, so it's not doing anything now. So so I have it bringing in, and then basically this is activating. Or no, it's not activating. Oh, okay, interesting. So I guess I don't have that much extra fatty acids anymore. I have it activating if there's less than, like more than a certain amount of fatty acid. And then also here, this is my one of my older alkene farms that I also brought in the fatty acids just to buff it up. Um, I'm surprised that there's not enough fatty acids now, but whatever. I'll just take one look at it. Yeah, I guess it's running a little bit low, but things should kick back up at some point. So let's see. Yep, so this is just my little fighter growing setup. Lots of progenitor. That's the fighter 1, and that's like the Kickstarter recipe that I am still using. I don't know. Doesn't matter really. I guess I should just have it turned aside there. It's missing off the pump. No, no, I'm not. There's no inserters here. Um, so yeah, so here is it growing constantly biters and biter eggs, and here it constantly gets jammed at too much amino acids, and I guess it's not being broken down fast enough and or exported as the ammonia. This is where it constantly gets jammed up. Um, and like I didn't want to vent it all from all these uh from all these tanks here, but like it's not getting vented. Like this tank is actually being vented out fast enough, but I guess it's just not flowing into this tank fast enough. Um, so yeah, here's some like disposal facility that creates a lot of extra plastic, and I think because there's so much plastic that I have it output it into the logistics system. So much of it that I have to have a thing where it gathers a bunch of it and it goes into like the LTN circulation instead of instead of it being just stuck in the logistics system. Whew, I think that's everything. Um, that's everything that this mod. And then to finalize it, you can see here. Um, so I think I have these mini little lakes made to pump some algae into here, and I think worms grow better around where there's grass and algae, and then trees grow around better around worms, and then these nests grow better around where there's trees and worms, or where there's fish. And yeah, like you see fish on here. So you basically have. I basically made like a little zoo here that has it all because I don't want biters running amok in my base or anything like that. And it's actually very hard to get the biter nest to latch around any of these islands otherwise. Um, yeah, or even like these full of trees, but it's very tough to actually get the biters to grow more than what they already have. So that's everything. I think this has been a very long video, just me rambling on and on. So my overall impressions of this mod, I really had a good time playing it. I'm surprised at how long it took, but I guess this is kind of sort of it's not. I wouldn't say this is like as complicated as your like Bob's Angels runs, or definitely nowhere near like a Pyanodon run. It's a lot. I can't really compare it with a space exploration run. It's weird because it took as long as my space exploration run, though. A lot of the 300 hours that I spent in the game time, right? Like the if you it says like 314 hours, but a lot of that actually was me just idling, getting say like getting my logistics mod, I mean the logistics mall, filled up and getting like the bots built up. And I did that once when I was like going to logistics bots 2, and I did that once when I was going to bots 3. And sometimes you just have to idle for a bunch of hours at a time, and the way and idling works just because of this wind power that I mentioned previously. Um, Once you have this wind power set up, there's nothing that really ever like blacks out or anything, or makes your base stuck unless you have things massively going wrong with trains, which has happened. I've idled for a whole night just to find out in the morning that wait, something in my train signal just blocked everything. But it's still okay because you actually don't really lose progress either, just because everything is on this um, everything is on this like background power that it just kind of kicks back up, and you don't really ever get any big lockups anywhere. So that's a good part, and it's a much different way of playing this game, in my opinion, than your standard burner power setups. Uh, like the setup of a background wind power versus plus many, whether it be makeshift batteries or actual batteries. Um, the technology of setting up of like you the concept of you creating novice and the things on it is actually pretty interesting, especially with copper not being available at first. Well, which is a cool deviation from the standard game because we we're used to mining massive amounts of copper, where it may not actually be realistic to mine massive amounts of copper. I mean, even as humans, we work with copper and bronze a lot earlier than we work with iron, just because of the lower melting points of copper. But actually, there is interesting enough. There is actually much less copper on Earth compared to iron, like much less. In fact, that's why there's so much, probably so much copper theft going on nowadays. Um, so that's an interesting way of looking at the game. A couple of criticisms of the mod I would have to say is, like, for example, like this third technology, here, this number, you actually get it so earlier on in the game, and much of the game is actually just um, variations of using these three technologies, and then of course later on you get a little bit of a better recipe for the first and second tech, and I mean even any of the base techs you get a little bit of a better recipe for them. But actually, a huge amount of game you actually don't really make any new technologies, and you just keep making newer buildings, I guess. Um, and with how complicated any of the building recipes are, it's actually very difficult to build any sort of a belted setup. So you actually a large portion of the game you end up using logistics bots. I don't know if that's a knock or a. I mean, maybe I'm just not smart enough, but say like this massive cluster F of a starter base. Um, I mean, if any of you can actually build like a much more organized setup, kudos to you. I couldn't come up with anything more than this, and I mean, and at some point I just, once one spot came around, and of course then the logistics mall. This is the first logistics mall. This was a godsend even at that point. And then of course you have this like massive logistics mall later on, and in fact I think some of the games actually intended to be played with a logistics mall, like um, for example this technology here. There's no way the creator intended it to be like a belted setup to make this. Mm, let's see where it is. Let's find it. So like yeah, this one that requires just all these like mesh of random buildings. This physics apparatus technology. Yeah, there's no way that anyone's meant to actually have this organized in a belted format other than bringing things in via bots. So that's another thing. A lot of a huge portion of the game is this. Another huge feature of, I don't know if it's a feature or a or whatever. But a lot of things have input products and like byproduct. And a lot of times, even if you're trying to make a modular setup, like the way I have different train box modules of bringing in inputs and then trying to export outputs, you end up having to squeeze one of the outputs back like very far away, or to like maybe just like a box next to it. And some of these belts are pretty long. Even the red belts are pretty long in that it's not terribly hard if you say you wanted to have something like uh piped far away, but it's with a lot of the fluid byproducts, you end up having to do that. Or, I mean, you could be lazy and just vent it, but I try not to because everything needs to be energy efficient. That's another thing. And the last thing I want to touch on would be just the whole fluids dynamic of this mod. Um, so say for like these massive alkene farms where it requires like a huge amount of hydrogen and a huge amount of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. It requires you to use these fluid must flow ducts for it to really work. But then of course your um, tanks, the tanks don't get any faster, and sometimes fluid throughput is just so tough to manage. With and I mean this isn't anything this mod can do. I mean I love fluids. Don't get me wrong. I love it when you have a mixture of solid items and fluids, but it just gets a bit much sometimes with how fluids just don't seem to want to move. Even with these pipes, like with these black pipes, I mean the mod creator is nice enough to put in four levels of pipes in, and then of course you can add in like the fluid must flow, but even then it's tough to get throughput to flow properly. And then of course once you start doing some of these bio recipes that requires an import of oxygen, and then of course there's like the grass and tree, I mean the algae, grass and tree all output oxygen, but then the worms, fish, and biters all take an input of oxygen. It's impossible to get the throughput, the flow of the oxygen fluid to flow properly, and that's just something that makes the mod less fun, I guess. I mean, it's a great mod nonetheless. I thoroughly really enjoyed it, and I really thank Anachrony for making this mod. I hope you guys enjoyed my video, enjoyed my content. Um, I don't really try to be like a big YouTuber or anything like that. If you have any questions, uh, don't ever hesitate to ask me. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed.